Chapter 18. A Life with Lynn at the Center. The second year of our relationship didn't unfold in grand gestures or carefully scheduled dates. Every day together felt like one. We were inseparable, falling into a rhythm that made Lynn the center of my life. Pottery and pride. One afternoon, Lynn spread out pieces she planned to take to a consignment shop. I picked up a pair of earrings with a bluish base color. Across the surface she had traced her signature designs, abstract shapes and patterns that made them ornate, unmistakably hers. Beside them sat a green bowl, the same confident hand drawing its abstract pattern across the glaze. She asked what I thought of the prices. 10 for the earrings, 20 for the bowl. I shook my head, smiling. 15 for the earrings, 30 for the bowl. People will pay more. They're that good. I could be accused of bias. I was in love, after all. But others were buying her pottery, too. She was selling in shops, and it was her talent, not just my admiration, that proved its worth. My suggestions weren't just pride. They were faith in what she created. Valentine's Day, a proclamation. By February, the rhythm of our lives was deepening. Valentine's Day came, and with it a new side of me. I walked into a grocery store where roses stood in buckets near the entrance. My heart raced, but not with shyness, with something like awe. "Hi," I said to the florist, loud enough for others to hear. "I need roses for the one I love, my girlfriend." I wanted the world to notice, to see me carrying those roses out the door, to ask why I looked so full of light. Later, at a jewelry shop, I leaned across the counter. "I need something for someone I love, my girlfriend." The clerk smiled, asking, "Gold or silver?" "Silver," I said instantly. I knew. It felt transcendent, like a religious awakening, as though I had discovered something miraculous and wanted to proclaim it from rooftops. For once, attention wasn't terrifying. It was a kind of glory. Old Wounds, the Azalea Festival. But old wounds still surfaced. That April, Lynn was at her pottery booth at the Azalea Festival, demonstrating her craft. I stopped by, but she was busy, surrounded by questions and customers. I wandered through the festival alone, past food stands, couples laughing with ice cream cones, children chasing balloons. The day was bright with spring, but inside I felt adrift. She wasn't rejecting me. She was just working. Still, the boy who once felt invisible returned, whispering, "You don't belong. You're on the outside again." The feeling passed, but it reminded me that even in love, deprivation doesn't disappear overnight. Healing comes in layers, and sometimes the ache resurfaces when you least expect it. Belonging, with Dusty, with Lynn. By late spring, the ache was fading. Our social circle had grown. Poetry readings, friends like Thomas and Jean, evenings in cafes. Sundays meant the Coastline Convention Center, where Dusty greeted us like family. Dusty was the mother figure that created a welcoming atmosphere at the Coastline Convention Center lounge where she worked. I continued to gravitate toward that presence that she offered, no doubt an expression of my lifelong desire for a motherly figure in my life. One mid-June evening, I came alone after work, knowing Lynn was at the pottery studio. Dusty asked warmly, "How's Lynn doing?" I told her she was working but would join me later. Her question carried recognition. We were seen as a couple, inseparable even when apart. When Lynn arrived, she slipped into the chair beside me. I turned to her, delighted, our eyes meeting with unspoken joy. "Did I tell you I love you today?" She smiled, and I leaned in to kiss her lips. Not a quick peck, but a kiss that lingered, a kiss of emotion and devotion, not routine. It was never just a greeting. It was always fresh, as if we hadn't kissed only hours earlier. In private, the passion burned more intensely, but even here, in public, our affection brimmed with meaning. And it wasn't only me who reached for her. There were plenty of moments where she would lean toward me, initiating the same tenderness. Public displays of affection, the pottery party. Each December, we went to a Christmas party through Lynn's pottery class. At first, I worried how she would introduce me. By the second year, there was no doubt I was her boyfriend. We walked in hand. She knew I didn't know anyone there, and she understood my unease. When I started to feel awkward, standing off to the side, she was in conversation with someone else. I came up behind her, gently wrapped my arms around her, and said, "Hi." She turned, smiling. "Are you doing okay?" "I am now." The couple bubble was real. Even in a room full of strangers, her presence made me feel like I belonged. Toward engagement. By summer 1994, engagement was already in the air. It wasn't forced or expected or the next box to check. It was simply the natural next step of what we already knew. I thought of Carly Simon's song. That's the way I've always heard it should be. Its melody was haunting, its lyrics bleak. Parents distant from one another, couples clinging and clawing, love reduced to obligation. When I first heard it, I thought of my own parents, their perfunctory gestures, their indifference that left me feeling unseen. Psychologists say we repeat what is familiar, even when we vow it will be different. And yet, here I was, finding something wholly unlike what I had known. Even in our kisses, I felt the difference. Our eyes lingered. Our lips met not out of duty, but out of desire. They were declarations, not routines. For all I knew, passion was supposed to fade into habit. But with Lynn, it never did. Every gaze, every kiss said, "This is not what you grew up with. This is love, alive, chosen, free." Every time Lynn expressed affection with a touch, with a kiss, she expressed something we both welcomed. Her gestures mirrored my own. This was so different than what I had seen anywhere. By the end of the second year, the one who once felt invisible and who had learned to disappear was gone. In their place was someone connected, certain of belonging. The realities of cystic fibrosis. Yet as we talked about engagement, our path was not like every other story of two people planning a life together. There was a tension we could not escape, though I tried hard to push it out of my awareness. Lynn had been born with cystic fibrosis, and though we rarely spoke of it as a limitation, it was always there in the background. I wanted to think of our love as limitless, untouched by illness. Part of me hoped for a cure, or simply believed that as long as she had access to medical care, we would be fine. At the clinic, a social worker once suggested that maybe if I got a job with a large company, their health plan might cover someone with CF. But even as the words were spoken, I knew how unrealistic it was. Large corporations weren't hiring social workers. And even if I somehow managed it, even if I became one of the few, what then if I was laid off? Even my father, who had worked steadily all his life, had been laid off once. Was the answer supposed to be divorce so Lynn could regain coverage? It was ludicrous, yet that was the corner the system backed us into. This was before the Affordable Care Act. Insurance companies could and did deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. The state program in North Carolina covered Lynn's care, but it was all or nothing. If we legally married, both our incomes would be counted, and the result was simple: denial of coverage, denial of care. There was no middle ground, no option to pay a premium to remain in the program. Even her family's wealth offered no solution. Her mother was a psychologist, her stepfather an airline pilot. Together, they likely earned more than $500,000 a year. But even they could not simply pay out of pocket for her ongoing care. It wasn't a matter of affordability. It was a matter of access. The program did not allow people to buy in once they exceeded the income threshold. You either qualified or you didn't. So I did what I could. I pushed the thoughts aside. I didn't want this love story to be overshadowed by illness. Lynn wasn't bringing it up as a limitation, and neither did I. We lived as though the promise of healthcare access would always be there, as though the system wouldn't force our hand. It was easier to believe that, easier to stay in the joy of what we had than to face the brutal truth that the law made our love into a liability.